old video files in there, which are the old class files. It has different ways of animating keyframes, using the curve editor, using stuff like easy ease, ease out. We're gonna do all that still. But in my hopes of getting this to stick a little bit more, I'm gonna treat this as a studio project instead. Okay? So the project that we're going to be working on, that still has all that stuff in it. So instead of just moving circles around and seeing what they do in the keyframes and fading up and fading down stuff, we're gonna build a spot for to bring attention to the homeless. Now I just made this up this morning, right before class. You can check the date on it. So over the next 2 weeks, next week is track mats and masks and stuff like that in After Effects. I'm going to try to incorporate that into this somehow. But this, by the end of class, is what I hope we can get into. Now, I should mention that I'm not going to build this step by step, like move this here and drop this here, and I'm going to show you the methods to do it in class. You can group up with somebody if you like, but you're going to follow the process and build out your own unique spot out of it how you see fit. Okay, this is something I usually do with the second years, but I'm going to give you guys a try doing it too. Okay. All right, so here's the spot. Hopefully it'll play. Okay, so we're gonna build that out today. Some of it we'll at least get through the rough cut today, but before we get into that, we're definitely going to look at setting keyframes and adding eases and all that kind of stuff to the keyframes, because you will need all of that for building out some of this if you want to try to follow it as closely as possible. For the first part of it, so we're going to build, let me get to the After Effects file actually. So the first part for today, everybody, we're going to build out the rough cut. So that is just marking out the audio, dropping the images in. I did a little bit of animation at the front for this one right here. But then for the rest of it, was just like this picture works here, this picture works here, this picture works here. So timing it to each one of the markers that are there. Then on the second one, we will get into all the different animations for each one. So I'll start you off on each part of it, but I want you to, help finish it, finish it up. And then for the third part is the end slate, where is the just the animation and the call to action at the end. Okay, so that's a separate comp, but then that's a pre-comp that goes into, and you'll know what a pre-comp is in a bit, that goes into the end. So you can see the amount of layers that we used to build this last section here. There's a text, save someone, invisibleones.com. But that comp has just been brought into just this single layer right here. Okay, so it's a way of kind of, think of it like putting everything into a folder and then just using that one folder, and it comes with all the animations and everything already built in. So it's just reading from one file to the next. So for instance, this is what a pre-comp does. So for instance, you can see that all the text here is white. if I grab, say, this text right here, and I change the color of it. So I change the color of it to red here. As soon as I go back over here, text is red over there. Okay, so it's just reading from one file to the next all the time. Same exact file, but you don't have to worry about all the keyframes and everything in this one. If you need to edit it, you go to this one. Okay, make sense so far? Yes? Okay. All right. Download the files that you need for today, everybody. We're going to start off with some easier stuff, but I definitely want to get you guys started working on this. So, and as mentioned, if you want to work on this on your own, great. If you want to like sit down with somebody and kind of figure out what you want to build together, that's fine also. I'm going to leave that up to you. The order of the images, once you guys get into it, you pick your own order, okay? So you pick out which ones you want to put where, but the timing has to be the same. Okay? So you build your own spot. So everybody's just going to be a little bit different. All right? But same message. All right, so download the files for today, everybody. What I have given you, and let me know if this works, because I know that people are running different versions of After Effects also. Within the folder that you will be downloading today, everyone, you have this. So you have the reference movie, right? You have a class file. So if you are not running the most recent version of After Effects, which I don't think the computers in the lab are, you will open this one right here, 18.x.aev. So anything from After Effects 18 and up, it'll open. This one is the latest version of After Effects. So either one of these will work for the latest version, but if you're running the older version, try this one. So all you're going to do is right click on it, open After Effects. And I have been nice and arranged all the comps and everything for you already. So if it works, you should open up looking like that with everything in it. Okay? Download, give that a try. If it gets screwed up, let me know and then I'll show you how to fix it. Okay, so what can happen, what just happened, a bunch of the files can be missing. You'll say that, oh, 24 files are missing from here. They're not missing. They're still in a folder, but the link is just broken, and I'm kind of happy that it happens. This is going to continue to happen to you, but here's how you fix it. Choose an image. Well, all mine are there, so that won't help you. You'll have like looks like a TV test pattern on yours. So let's say that we choose this one here. That one will stand out. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, choose that file, double click on it. Yeah. Where do you want to put it to? On the spot. Right here? That's not it. So if that file is missing, you'll get the little TV test pattern on it. Click on it, it's going to ask you to find it. Navigate to a folder called footage. And then in that footage folder, you'll see another one called images. Find that folder in the images. Once you click on that folder in the images, it'll find all the rest of them and load them up for you. Okay? You got it? They're all set. Really? Was everybody's link broken? And everybody has a file now? Right, slowly but surely, everyone's getting a file. Once you find one, it'll just reconnect all of them. Which one? Nope.
No, that one's fine. That's just reference.
Not one separate. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, let's go to images right now. Okay, and then go into the find the download folder, so go into the downloads. Is the movie over already? Okay, week 9. Okay. Go into that folder, yeah. Put it, go to images. And then images, the 100 I'm looking for. Okay. Yeah, organize that. It's not enough. I've done like 3, sometimes 4. So much nicer.
You guys asking me which file?
Okay, so I don't know what version of After Effects you're using, so we'll go with this one instead. This one? Yeah. Is that it? Okay, open. Close this one right here. Okay, it's not there.
Right. From there, as long as we have the images, then we're good. So if you have like all of your images in the file,
This one?
that's where we are right now. So we're just good. We haven't done anything more. Just that one. So yeah, just not even the one added all the others.
Yes. Don't double click on it. Right.
So if it's in here and you can see it, then you've already found it, so you're good. The only thing you might need is the audio, and you just find that in the
Right click? Oh, sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
just
so where you are right now, you're
Yeah.
Yeah, 24 plus. Okay, so over here now, go into the images folder. Go into, double click on it. Okay, go into the home folder, go into footage, go into images, go on this one, 00, click on import. And you'll find all the rest of it. See? Now you help.
Okay, how are you guys doing loading up the footage? Anybody not have it loaded up except for the guys that just got in?
It's waiting, yeah, that's the same thing as telling me. No, what version? What version do you have on your, After Effects, yeah. What are you going to do? 2023?
Well, you can
So
open
which
this
one?
one. Okay, another 10 minutes or so, guys, and we'll get this loaded up. We're not starting here, though. We're gonna start off with some easier stuff first. Yes.
Which one of these files do you want me to open?
So open up the one with 18, that one, right click on it. It's okay. it should be fine.
So you couldn't agree on a long term.
I know. We've never done that.
Hello.
I don't know, I wouldn't try. Like 25-year-old.
Okay, so check for in your images folder to see if everything is there. Not there. Double click on this one. Okay, because the file is disconnected. It's in your downloads, correct? So downloads week 9.
Should be in there.
Review it. Motion 1, week 9.
There it is.
Oh. So in here, footage folder, images, find it. Once it finds that one, it'll find all the rest of them. Okay, all the rest of them are found. You're good to go.
Okay.
Are we ready? Guys, hope you're ready. Let me do it on the phone. We're already like 20 minutes late when you're on your phone. Come on. Okay, everybody, let's get started. Okay, so we'll leave this file alone for right now, everyone. Just so everyone's not confused, I'm just going to get rid of mine for right now, okay? I'm gonna close that one, and close the end slate. I still have all of them living in my comps. You do not, because you're gonna be building them today. Well, let's start right from the beginning, everybody. Let us go under our composition settings and set up a new composition for me, please. The size of this composition is we're going to use a preset for it. We're using the social media landscape. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Social media landscape and the size of that is 1280 by 720, 30 frames per second. And you will find that living right down here. Make sure that one is chosen. The duration that we're going to use on this one, I'll shorten it up a bit. I just want to use around 5 seconds on this one. So 0.5 for my duration. Okay, so we're going to be using this comp. We're just going to be experimenting with keyframes and stuff for right now. Okay, that's it. Nothing special about this composition right here. We're just using it as a canvas just to mess around with and figure some stuff out. Okay, once you're done, everybody, click on OK for me. And we will get started with our new comp. And I'm just going to leave this one open right now because in the end I'm probably going to dump it anyway, so I don't need it to be a part of everything else. Okay. So we have our composition at the size that we want. And you guys know you can use your little trackball and your mouse to zoom in and out. Last week we looked at setting a few keyframes here and there, and we're going to be doing some of the same again. So hopefully you guys remember stuff from last week. Okay, to start everybody, I know this looks like it's on a black background right now, but it's actually just the alpha channel showing through. So if you click on the little alpha channel switch right here, you'll see that it's actually transparent. So what we're going to do, just for right now, is just set up a new background on this. So we're going to set up that background with the use of a solid layer. Now, to get a new solid on here that we're going to use for a layer, same as you would in Photoshop, get a new layer. We're going to go under Layer, go to New, and choose Solid. Or keyboard shortcut is Command Y, everybody. Command Y. And I don't need anything from my text tool right now either. So delete that. Okay, so select new solid. So you'll get a box like this. It's going to automatically go to the composition size that we have. So just gonna make sure it's at the comp size, then click OK. The color that I want to choose, actually, before I get into anything else, I'm going to choose like a kind of bluey color on this, so a darker blue. I'm going to build out a bit of a gradient background. Now, there are different ways to build out the gradient background. I'll show you the way that Joe used in the recorded messages, and then I'll show you another way. You can choose whichever way you want to use, okay? Okay, so I have this background layer here. This is kind of the old way of doing it. Click on Command D to make a copy of it. So Command D duplicates that layer and makes a copy. Once you have your copy done, everybody, on the layer that's on the top, I'd like you to go into your effects and presets. Right over here, if you remember from last week, effects and presets live right here. I'm going to use an effect to build out a gradient. So click in the search section and just type in circle. And you'll see under generate, we'll have one called circled. Now you can find it here in the effects and presets, or of course you can find it up here also. But for right now, we're going to use this one, effects and presets, this one. Drop that in, and it's just going to give you a circle, exactly what it says it's going to do. If you look over here in the effects panel right now on the left-hand side, and if you don't see it, just scroll back and forth. You have your projects, and you have effects, projects and effects. If by chance you don't have effects up for whatever reason, you will find the effects under the window menu, and if you go down here, you'll see the effects control. Okay, if you don't have it, but by default, that should be up. So in the effects, everybody, I'm just gonna make my radius a little bit bigger. You guys choose what size you want. Mine's up to like almost 200 right now. I'll just make it a nice even 200. And then I'm going to just put the top of it, top of the circle to the top of the composition. To do that, I'm going to grab the little crosshairs up here, which define the area where that is going to live. If I just snap it right up here, that circle's going to live up at the top. Okay, once that circle's at the top, let's do a few things to it. I want to soften up the edge, so under here you'll see feather. Crank up the feather a little bit, like that, just to soften up that edge. And then right at the very bottom of this effect, you'll see blending mode. On that blending mode, you'll see it's set to none. And I'm going to change it from none to soft light, just to give a little bit of a gradient. So here are my settings, everybody. I know they're difficult to see. That's what I have right now on mine. But please, I really, stress not to follow exactly what I do. I want you to experiment with all of these tools. I want you to, have your own values. Design the background that you would like to design. Okay? Okay, how's everyone doing? Okay. All we're doing is building out a background. Okay. So this background has done its job. It doesn't have to do anything else on here. I have a gradient background right now, and it's just going to live there. I'm not setting any keyframes and anything to it. So it has 2 layers. I don't need 2 extra layers in this composition, so what I'm going to do is compile all of this and pre-compose it so it's 1 layer. Okay? Just like we saw the pre-comp from before, if I have both of these selected, I'm going to right-click on both of them together, and then I'm going to go to, let's see, where's my pre-compose? Right here. So right-click on it, go to pre-compose, you'll find it if you right-click on it, or you'll find it on their composition in the main menu places, same exact thing. But when all else fails, right click and you'll find what you're looking for. So once you click on pre-compose, everybody, it will give you this window right here. It's going to ask if you want to move all the assets to this current composition, and the answer is yes, so make sure that this first one here is checked. Give this a name. This will be just background, BG for background. Click OK, and you'll see now I have one layer in here. So this is what we have so far, everybody. We're going to be doing a lot of pre-compositing and pre-composing today. So far we have our main comp number 1. Within comp number 1, the background comp lives. Okay? So if we would like to make any edits to the background color, we would just double click on the background comp and it'll open up those two comps again for me. And then I can mess around with them. So completely non-destructive, but I don't need them up. I'm going to keep it closed. Okay. So that is one way of building a background. To me, that's a super long way. It's very convoluted, but it's another way to build it. This is another way that I find to be a lot easier if you're building on a gradient background, that is. Okay, you can just watch this for now. I'm just going to turn this one off. Okay, and I still have my alpha channel up now, so I can see through it, but I'm going to build another layer. So layer, new, solid again. This time, it doesn't matter to me what this color is, okay? It doesn't matter, let's do something that's really gonna stand out. So let's say that my new color is that. Okay? You guys don't have to do this now, just watch. So here's my new background. On this one, there's an effect called, under effects, go to generate and gradient ramp. So effects, generate, gradient ramp on this purple color layer. Click on that purple, click on gradient ramp, and it is going to give you just a black and white gradient. Okay, it does add black and white. Now, if I wanted to kind of build something like I did before, I have the option of doing a linear ramp, so just have straight linear colors, or I can choose radial. Within the radial, you can see where this is going already. I can choose a color blue at the top, and then I can choose my darker blue at the bottom. So that is another way of building out the gradient. Now, the option that I have with this, I can choose where I want this other gradient to be, or you know, if I want this gradient to be faded out a little bit more, I can grab the little nodes that I have on here and I can define where I would like them to be by just moving these around. So there's one way, there's the other way. So I don't want to show you too many different ways to do things because I don't want you to be confused, but there's multiple ways to build different color gradient backgrounds. For right now though, on this magenta layer, I'm just going to delete it. We'll stick with the older version. But the other way, once again, is to use a gradient ramp effect. Okay, now, as I mentioned, this background layer is going to just hang out right here for a bit. I don't want it to move or anything, so the first thing I'm going to do with this is just lock this layer. If you look down at the bottom right here, you'll see that you have a little lock beside it. Just lock it. It's just gonna stay there and just be a background, okay? All right, let's start looking at the keyframes right now and how, and just how they operate in a little bit more detail than we did last week. What I would like everyone to do, just so we have some kind of guides up right here, I would like everyone to open up their Safe Title and Safe Action area. You'll find it under the little bullseye looking thing right here. Safe Title, Safe Action, pop that up and you'll get this grid on here like that. Okay, this is used exactly for what it says, Safe Title, Safe Action. So you'll see that you have a 16:9 ratio. The first one on the outside is the Safe Action area. This next one is the Safe Text area. So
just trying to give you a guide of where to put the most amount of action and where your text can go. Okay, and then you'll see you have a 4:3 ratio on the inside of that also. Not that anybody really uses 4:3 anymore right now, but it's up there. Okay, next thing I'd like you to do, everyone, is that we're going to build some shapes out. So the first thing you have to do is just make sure, if we're using shapes, that nothing is selected on your scene. This is what happens. Well, if your layer is locked, nothing will happen, but if your layer is unlocked for whatever reason, and then you start to draw a shape out on it, you're gonna get some weird stuff happening. Okay, so you might get like it's not running on. So you'll get a mask happening. So it's gonna mask out that section instead. We're not looking at any masks until next week. So make sure that the layer is locked. Make sure it's deselected. And what I'm going to do is just grab my rectangle tool right here. And I have these parameters up already. On the stroke for right now, just to have it less confusing, I'm going to click on where it says stroke and just click on my little none sign here. I don't want to have any stroke on here at all. I just want to have a solid color. And of course that works exactly the same way as Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, now if we are building stuff, things out in shapes, you will see that if you're building out shape layers, you'll have an icon that looks like this. It's going to be little crosshairs with a star beside it. Okay, so that lets you know that you're going to be using shape layers on here. Okay, so to build out the shape layer, everybody, I'm going to hold down my command key and my shift key. That's going to constrain the proportions of this, and then I'm going to use the crosshairs right here in the middle and just draw out a little square. Okay, that'll be the shape that we're going to be using to kind of move around. Now, funny thing about shape layers, everybody, is that sometimes the anchor point is not where the anchor point should be. Because that's why I drew it out from the middle to kind of make the anchor point stay in the middle. If for some reason your anchor point is like over here, I'm just using this tool right here called a pan behind tool. This one, that lets me separate my anchor point from the object. So if it is out here, I want to be able to move it right to the center. Reason being, everyone, that if I go to rotate this right now, it's not going to rotate from the center, okay? It's going to rotate from the anchor point. So, and I don't want that. So grab that pan behind tool. If it's out of the center, drag it to the middle right there. If that doesn't work and your anchor point's out here, you can still grab your move tool, right click on it, go under transform, and click on center anchor point in layer. And it should jump right back in. Okay, so two different ways to do that. One was just grabbing the pan behind tool, dragging it to the center of your object, and the next one was just right clicking on it, and then clicking on transform and center point to object. Okay, so you should have something that looks like that. This is just the object that we're going to be moving around. So we're going to grab this object, and I'm just going to grab it and move it down to the bottom corner, like that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do with this, everybody, is just set a position keyframe on this. Okay, so I'm going to click on the letter, what letter? Position, somebody. T for position? P for position, okay. P, so move it over here. Set a keyframe by clicking on the stopwatch. I'm going to move this to around 4 seconds on here. Now, if you don't want to drag it to 4 seconds, you guys know that you can just type 400 in here.
seconds. Once you've done that, just drag this over, and you'll see that you get a little keyframe happening like that, okay? You get another keyframe right away. You don't have to set the keyframe. Once one keyframe has been set by you, After Effects assume that you want to make other keyframes. So what we're going to start looking at is the interpolation of keyframes from point A to point B on each one of these. Right now, it's interpreting these keyframes as just something linear. So it has the same constant speed going all the way across. Now, there are different methods of changing keyframes, so you can speed it up and slow it down over a period of time without adding any other keyframes. This is how some of this is done. So on this first one right here, let's name this one. If you right click on it and go down to rename, or if it's selected and you click on return, you can rename it. This will be, what are we gonna call this? This will be linear animation. Okay, so just going from point A to point B. Now, to see the difference of what this is, I'm going to make another copy of this one. So to make a copy of this one, everybody, first thing I'm going to do is select it, and then to make a duplicate, we're going to click on Command D, make a copy of that one. Okay? This one will be, let's say, easing. So linear. Ease. Now, they're both in the exact same spot, so you won't see any difference. So let's move one up a little bit higher. Now, if I try to just grab this one, my timeline marker is over here, and I said, okay, I want to move this now, it's going to assume that I want to add another keyframe and move it over like that. So you can see under here that it's formed another keyframe. I don't want to do that. To move things up, so we just have the same exact amount of keyframes, make sure that it's on top of one of the keyframes. And you will know it's on top of one of the keyframes if this little diamond right here is blue. Okay, so it's blue, and then I need to select both of the keyframes. So I'm going to click on the text that says position on it. That's the parameter that I want to move, is the position on here. So you can see as soon as I click on position, this keyframe is selected, and this one is selected. They're both selected. If I start moving my arrow keys, I'm going to be able to move both keyframes. So I'm moving both of them up. So just move them up so they're spaced out a little bit. Now you'll see that if I play this, they're both moving exactly the same, right? Hopefully that's working for everybody. I'll give you guys a little bit of time. They should be moving exactly together. Now, if I use some of the keyframe functions in here, for instance, if I click on this first keyframe, make sure that just one of these keyframes is selected, the one at the front right here. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go down to where it says Keyframe Assistant, and I'm going to click on Ease In. Now, same amount of keyframes, this has changed a little bit though. So if I play this now, still going exactly the same, right? So that's easing in. Now, if I change that, and you can change it by holding down, let me stop it from playing for a second. You can change it by holding down your command key, clicking on that keyframe twice, it'll bring it back to a diamond. If I change this now, let me move it back to the front. I right click on it, go back to Keyframe Assistant, and I'm going to type in Easy Ease. Well, choose Easy Ease on there. So they're both kind of in the same spot, like that. But look at what happens now. Easy Ease. they're both moving a little bit differently right now. So one starts off really slowly, speeds up in the middle, and then slows down towards the end. Okay, so if we really zoom in on this, everyone. Let me zoom in on this just to show you what's going on. Using that easy ease, everyone. Each one of these little dots right in here represent a keyframe that is being generated in between all of this, and the speed that is being generated in between. So you can see like right here in the middle, you can see that these are kind of evenly spaced going along. If I move this right to the end, look at these keyframes right here at the beginning. How much closer they are together. So they're really close together, meaning that it's just going to be starting off a lot slower in that section and then speeding up throughout. So it speeds up in the middle and then moves along. Now let's duplicate this one more time. So I'm going to click on Command D again, and this one I'm just going to call custom. And we'll make a copy of this one also, making sure that I'm on top of the keyframe. We'll click on P, click on the text for P so that both keyframes are selected, and I'm going to move this one up. And I'm going to change this one back to linear. So click on it so I just have a straight line going all the way through. So it should match with the bottom one. Okay, so those are both moving at the same speed and duration going across. Now, if I have this one selected, I'm going to select the text for it. And then I'm going to change this now from just this normal editor, and I have to be careful with this one because this can get a little bit crazy. If I change it from just a custom looking keyframe setup, I'm going to choose my graph editor. So you'll find the graph editor right over here. So click on the graph editor, and things are going to start changing a little bit. So you can see right now I have this linear path right here. You can see it moving along like that. And on this linear path, I have my little handles. So this is representative of the speed that this is flowing at. If I start pulling the speed of this down a little bit, you can see how it's affecting the cube that's in there right now. Whoops, a little too much. Now, if by chance it gets out of control and it doesn't fit, you can always click on this little button right here. Let me zoom in on it so you can see it. Right there. That just fits everything to the window. But you can see that if I have these little handles on here and I start pulling them out, I can really fine tune and adjust the speed of each one of these right here. So here's how this is going to play. Okay, so you can customize this almost as much as you like. If I pull this one in way like that, you can see how much I can get it to change just by changing the speed. So right here, you can see it ramping up really quickly, and then it's gonna go and slow right down. Now, if I bring it past this little 0 mark right here, I'm just gonna pop this one up and move it up like that. You can see the difference in it right here, really, really slow, and then speeds up towards the end. Okay, so I know the graph is kind of hard to wrap your head around at some points, but you can definitely get into some finer tune control by using the graph editor. So let me just crank this right in just to exaggerate what this is going to do. Okay, so it takes off really quickly, spikes up, slows down. And you can do the opposite also. If I like straighten this back out, and I'm going to maybe have this one spike up really quickly on this side right here, slow at the beginning and then speeds up towards the end. Same keyframes. As you can see, if I just turn this on and off, you can see that the keyframes are in the exact same spot as where they are on the graft. But you can really get into fine tuning stuff like this with the keyframes. Okay, and that goes for everything, not just position, but if you want to slowly fade your opacity up or scaling or anything like that, that can all be done with the with position. Let me delete these for a second, except for one. Let me just show you one more thing. Let me delete that. I just want one, and I don't even want to have a position keyframe on it. So no keyframes on this right now. Oh, there's one hanging out right there. Let me get rid of it. Let's see what this does with a scale really quickly, and then we'll move into building on some other stuff. So right now, I'm gonna click on scale. There's one keyframe there. This keyframe, I'm going to have this one at 0. And then let's say at around that 4-second mark, I'm going to have it at 200. Scale it up. Okay, so once again, linear scale. Scales up. Like that, okay? If I go into the graph editor and I choose the scale parameter on it, you can see once again I just have this linear looking scale right there. Now I do have the option to change different parameters on it. So if I look at this right now and I choose this keyframe, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to go into keyframe interpolation. You can see that my current settings are what they are. If I change this to Bezier handle and click OK, it gives me a little bit more flexibility with moving that handle around. So you can see right now, if I crank this right down, slow fade up, not as linear. So it starts off much quicker. Crank this one up here a little bit also. You can see it changing over time depending on how I change the graph on here. And if I click on the graph, it'll give me the overall scale of everything. Now you do have the option also, if I click on this little window down here, it's showing the speed right here for the graph. If I click on the edit graph value instead, it's going to give me a different one altogether. Okay, so graph value, you can see I have these handles here now. So let's say that I wanted this to kind of overshoot a little bit. So it's going to pop up and then it's going to scale back down with just 2 keyframes. So I'll play this one right now. So this should scale up, should do a little bit of an overshoot and then go back down again. Okay, so once again, that was done with changing it from the speed to just the graph value instead. So, and you can really tweak the animation. Like if I wanted to have like a huge overshoot on this where it's gonna pop right up and sink back down, if I change the graph so it's a little bit higher. So this is the end point here, but I'm overshooting it on the graph so it pops back in. Okay, and I can have it start off a little bit slower. And pop back in. Okay, so that's looking at the kind of temporal way of editing with the graph editor and just using easing in and easing out. But if we wanted to look at spatially editing some of this with just the 2 keyframes, this is what we can do. I'm going to delete these keyframes just so I have another cube up here that you can play with. So let me go back into my editor here and I'm going to get rid of these keyframes. Okay, no keyframes. Take this back up to 100. Okay, now just quickly, I'm going to move this over here, set some more position keyframes for it. So P4 position, make a keyframe, move this over here, back on to 4, drag it over, it's gonna give me another keyframe. You will notice by default, everybody, that I have these little Bezier handles on here. If I look at this, I have these handles that are on here. I can pull these handles down. So even if I don't have another keyframe down here to tell it to go down, I can still grab this and move it over. So here's the path of it now. Okay, just like you would in Illustrator or something else, changing the Bezier handles of the path for it to move along. And then that gives you the option to customize this a lot. So there's an S-curve for it. And that's still just using two keyframes. Now, in combination with that, if I wanted to do like an easy ease on the end, I can right click on this one, go into my keyframe assistant, easy ease. So it kind of slows down a little bit more gradually towards the end. So, and then along with that, if I wanted to get into the graph editor and edit the position of that also, you can still see that you have all of these different options that you can use to move that around. And then, not to get much more complex, but you can break that into, right here showing the X and Y values. You can separate out those X and Y values by clicking on these. And then it'll give you those handles also in here that you can edit further. But that's usually something we do in second year. I don't want to get too, I think that's enough of animating with the keyframes right now. You can see how these can change things abruptly like that, and it's still just two keyframes, right? So the reason why I'm showing you this is that the fewer keyframes you have to edit, the better. Okay, so if I had, because you can do the same exact thing right here, but then without any of this, but I could have one keyframe, two keyframes right there, maybe a third one there, a fourth one there, and then a fifth one there to get the same kind of movement. But if you can do it with two keyframes, why not do it with two keyframes? Okay, is that making sense to everybody? Is everybody just watching for right now? Okay, what I'd like you to do, everybody, is to get some kind of object in here and just experiment with this for a little bit. You're not gonna break anything. If it screws up, that's fine. But just get the feel of this a little bit, because you're going to, you might need some of it when we start looking at like this little end slate one right here. You'll notice that there's a lot, well, let's look at the keyframes on these. You can see there's easing in on a lot of these and easing and easy ease set on some of them. Not that you have to follow this exactly, but it really does help set the mood with something, and it also leads the viewer of this to read it in a certain way. Okay? So right now we're telling them to read this one word at a time. So okay, and you match it to the tempo of the music, and you can get something very, very powerful over some audio, some text, and some images. Okay, so play with this for a little bit, everybody. Once you're into that, we're going to start building out the rough cut. But you don't have to put any text on there right now. Just drop a shape in there. Make sure that the anchor point's in the center of it, and start moving that around a little bit. If you haven't, build out that wrapper. Any method that you want to use to build it out. And if the graph editor is getting too crazy, you can close it. Yeah. Sit by yourself.
This one. This? This? Yeah, so I'm not sure like where
Now, if you guys wanna get together and work together and figure stuff out, that's fine also. Easiest way to do it is just select it for them. you're building this out, everybody, just use 2 keyframes, okay?
Because normally you said like, once we set up first people, to change the time by time on the presets, that our professional and the preset.
Yep. Yep. Look, you don't have to do this. Yeah, because you did, then you just open up. Only if you're psychic, you know what question, you know what time you want. So I want you to just play with the easy, and ease in, and ease out. And then play with the grab out. How's everyone doing with this? Okay? Bored? Okay, a couple more minutes. See, who's still figuring it out. What I'll do, everybody, is send some. Well, the videos that are on live go into a little bit more detail, even though some of it might be a little bit, might be a bit antiquated because they've changed a few things since the last version of After Effects. But I will send you some up-to-date stuff to look that up. So. Okay, should we start building, everybody? You guys ready? Alright. Alright, let's start putting this, this composition together, everyone. How many people are working together? Anybody? No? Everybody's working separately? Okay, that's fine. Nobody's friends in this class, I guess? Okay, everybody, let's look at the first comp. I'm going to get rid of all this other stuff right here, so if my window looks a little bit different than yours, I'm gonna get rid of the background and the comp with everything else in it. Don't need it. The very first one that we're going to build, everybody, is the rough cut. The first thing on the rough cut. Now, last week, everyone, when we were working on the spot with the guy running and, you know, we dropped the audio in after, I mentioned that that was kind of a backwards way of doing things. We're gonna do things the right way this time, or what I think is the right way. We're gonna drop our audio in first. We're gonna mark our audio, and then we have cue spots to drop our images in. So if you look at this one right here, here are my markers on the top. So, image, and then on every 4 beat, image, 4 beats, image, it's right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, image, 1, 2, 3, 4, image. So I'm just listening to the beat of the music, and then on every 4 beats, without the animation on the start. So this is a rough cut. 1, 2, coming up.
I was still alone.
can see that they're dropping into sort of the beat of the music. So the first thing that we're going to do, I know it doesn't seem like a big thing to do, but it really helps tie things to the, it really helps set the tone for everything if you're setting it to some kind of beat. A lot of people don't notice it. It's usually something that's very, very unconscious, but it's a good thing to do, okay? All right, so to start everybody, the first thing that I'm going to do to find out how long this is to look at the duration of the audio. I can see that the audio right here is 1 minute. If I click on it, I can see all the parameters for it. 1 minute, 11 seconds. 1 minute, 11 seconds. The size that we're going to use is the same exact size that we used before. So let's set up the rough cut for this one, okay? So this is how I start. Composition, new composition. Rough cut, give it a name. And as mentioned, it is 1 minute, 11 seconds. Click on OK, and first thing we're going to do is drop our audio in. And it should just fit perfectly on there. Okay, now let me pull this comp out. So this will be my rough cut class file. Okay, so alpha channel's on again, that's fine. First thing we want to do, everybody, is to start dropping our audio markers in. So once again, if you guys have forgotten from last week, anybody remember from last week what the command was to drop the marker in? What was it? 8. Yes, what 8? 8 and something else. Okay, just to go over this again, because we're going to be doing this all the time, you guys got to know how to do this. If you have a keyboard with a numeric keypad on it, like this one, it's just the asterisk on its own, right? I think most people do that. If you have, or if you want to plug one into your laptop, that's fine also. But if you have one that is like mine, just a laptop, it doesn't have a numeric keypad on it, it is Control 8. And you can drop a marker in by clicking on Control 8. Okay? If you're on PC, Command 8. Okay. Now, everybody just look up here for a second for me. Okay? Just look up here. If I start playing this by clicking on the space bar, Control 8, and it's playing. Dropping them in.
I was still alone the moment that you held me.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so I'm dropping all of them in. The problem with putting them, I usually put them on the music layer. But another way to do this, let me delete all my markers on there. If I don't have anything selected on here, because of the way that I'm going to be building this, where it's in a linear sort of way where I'm dropping stuff in, and sometimes if my layers start looking like this, with all the different keyframes and stuff tied to it, I might not be able to see this layer down here at the bottom. And I don't want to have to keep moving it up for it to fit. So instead of placing it on this layer right now, I'm going to place them on the top up here instead. So they always stick to the top and I can see them all the time. Okay? So to do that, everybody, all you have to do is just make sure that you don't have anything selected. Okay? So before I have this layer selected and they landed on this layer, if I don't have a layer selected and I click on my spacebar, let it start playing.
Because that's how things go. It's yours and then it's history. When I was feeling ready, it ended just because.
Okay, then we have the end. Okay, so all those markers are in. I'd say a little prayer and hope that everybody brought headphones today. No? Alright, it's gonna get noisy. So what I'd like you to do exactly what I just did, drop those markers in. I think the first beat in is just after 5 seconds to get this right here. And of course, guys, just remember, if you want to listen to the audio, if I hold on my command key and scrub, doesn't sound great? Sounds awful? But that's one way to find out where it is. So, and then the other thing, if you just hold on your command key and click on this, it's just gonna loop over and over that marker. And then once again, everybody, if you really need to, LL brings up the waveform, like we saw last week, and just L brings up the decibels for it, or the levels. Okay, so LL waveform, LL decibels, or just L, and then you can open both of them at the same time. You shouldn't need to look at the waveform right now. I already checked the levels for the most part on this. It's a little bit on the loud side, but not worth turning down right now, okay? Let's see your levels over here. As long as we don't get into the red, we're good. I should mention also that this was like a, I don't know, almost a 5-minute song cut down into just over a minute. So there's a whole chunk of it that's it. All right, drop some markers in, everybody. I'll give you a few minutes, then we'll do the rough cut. And I don't mind if it gets noisy. Anybody change your mind about working together now? Okay, so once again, everybody, space bar to get going. And if you're on a Mac, then it's going to be Control 8. If you're on one with the numeric keypad, it is just the asterisk key. And if you're on a PC, it's Command 8. So all we're doing with the rough cut, everybody, is this. So I'm gonna start off, I'm gonna grab an image that I find fitting. So look through all of them, maybe not that one, maybe not that one. But let's say that I choose, I'm gonna choose this one instead this time. I'm gonna grab it, drop it in. So there's my first image. I'm just gonna scale it up at the beginning just so it fits. Okay, and I'll worry about any kind of animation later on. So I know that this image is going to last until maybe up to maybe a little bit over this point right here. I'm going to hold on my Option key, clip it. I'm ready for my next image on top of, or just a little bit above, ahead of that marker. Grab the next one in. Drop it in, there's the next one, scale it up. And then just keep building it out that way. Maybe not for, well, maybe for each one, yeah. So you can see from the beginning I have this. That image, here's a rough cut. Next image in, okay? What's that? Well, you have your audio marked?
No, mark the audio. Mark the audio first before you start dropping images. Yeah, don't worry about the image right now, get rid of the image. Yeah, delete. It's not gonna take you long to redo it, don't worry. Okay, so you wanna mark the audio, you have a numeric keypad on your laptop, so this is all I'm asking you to do. Close this window right before you do that. And you're just gonna click on play. Oh, I missed it. Delete this marker. Alright. So play. Ready to take over? Your turn coming up. You ready? Next.
Askers. You have to listen to your good music, everybody. Not working on it? Hmm? Hmm?
What?
Are you going to be working on it in class or just looking at the phone? To try at
It's
least.
to do with working at home.
How do you sell the audio? I added a message.
What's that?
Can I sell the audio?
Okay, space bar, and then this one right here, Askers for you.
Oh. You have the.
You have headphones in?
Yeah. So this would be controller for the.
No, for you, because you have the numeric keypad, all you need is just one.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. You tell me how to do it. When all else fails, right click. Select the mark you want to get rid of, right click on it. Oh, you don't have a mouse. Oh, you have a mouse. Right click on it. It's yours. And go for a second. Do you want to get rid of this one? All those fails, right click. Okay, so your marker is in. All right. Feeling a little tense?
Yeah, when I got flustered, flustered about what? That's just me. Something flustered. I should have. That's what I think. No, but like I said in the beginning, I had it, but then because I was helping, I tried. Okay, I was, and then,
You good now?
yeah. It's not me, so like.
All right, everybody, listen up. We're gonna go into step number 2 of this, okay? Step number 2, just to go over this one more time. Okay, so find an image that you find impactful at the beginning of this. This is where I usually start off. You want to grab their attention right away. So I chose, here's the one that I didn't choose that I think is equally as good. Let me grab this one, and drag this one down, right on top of this layer. Okay, really small though, that's probably why I didn't choose it. So let me scale it up. Now, another thing that you have to be mindful of, everybody. I will look up here, please, guys. If, once you get to the point, you'll notice on all of these actually, before I start getting into a big explanation, you'll notice that, not on the rough cut, but on the animation right here. So on the animated one that we have right here, you'll notice that they're kind of scaling up, but they're not scaling up from the center, a lot of them. What I'm doing with all of these is I want to really keep the eyes as part of the main part of this. So I don't want to just zoom into somebody's nose, or else it's just not the same, right? So in order to just zoom in on the eyes, like say I wanted to zoom in on just her eyes right there, you'll see where the anchor point is. I'm going to use this pan behind tool, and I'm going to move the anchor point to her eyes. Okay, and then I can go back into my move tool. Now later on when I want to scale this up, it's scaling up right where I need it to be, right? So, but for right now, is a rough cut, just get it to fit. So there's my first image. So maybe I'll do a slow fade up to this point right here of that image, because I think it's a good image to start from. I'm gonna go just past the marker, just a little tiny bit past the marker. And then I'm going to clip this layer. Option, right square bracket. Cut it off for right now. Okay? We can always pull it back out if we need it, right? We can always drag it back out. And then I'm going to find my next image. So let's say that my next image is, I'll grab this one. So this is my next image right here. I'm going to grab this one, move this back to the marker, right where that is. Drag it down to the marker, drop it on top of that layer. Scale it in, same thing, so it fits. Once again, pan behind tool, grab this, up by the eyes, maybe that one not so much because his eyes are closed, but then scale it up. And position it to where you want that first frame to be on here, so maybe right there. Right, so if we do have to scale it, scaling up from there instead. And then same thing again. Next image. And in some cases, if you want an image to be up longer, if you find it to be that impactful, then you can maybe go to 2 of these, but as long as that transition happens on a marker, that's what you're looking for. Okay? And then just lay it out. So I'll go to the end layout just so you can see the rough cut. So rough cut first, you'll notice that these don't really have any keyframes on them. I just experimented with a few of them at the beginning, but the rest of them do not. Okay, so just do the rough cut first. And just remember those letters, everybody. S for scale, E for position, T for opacity, A for anchor point.
So this is like when you said you could, somebody to like, what you call it, right?
Yes. Same thing. You guys don't have to follow the same image sequence, okay? So are you scaling already? Just do the rough cut first, and then I'll show you how to scale. So just drop the images in first. Because what that will allow you to do instead of scaling each one at a time, then you can start copying and pasting from one to the next, and you speed things up a lot. Set a keyframe again. Because you don't have the audio markers. Those are the audio markers. Remember, you're supposed to drop the markers in. Right now, this is going the wrong way fast. Okay, so what you were supposed to do is to look at the audio first. Can you tell that audio? What length is the audio? Yeah, so see how long the audio is? 1 minute, 11 seconds. Okay, how long is this? 1 minute, 11 seconds, okay? So on this one right now, we need to set the markers in for the audio on this one. Yeah, but you're supposed to be doing it to these. See, look on mine, see how many markers I have on the top? That is telling you where I drop in each image. So you need to listen to it. And then, no, that's fine. But listen to it and then drop your markers in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to hear it, and then you have to like listen to it every time. started with
So,
it.
oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I can make the trip.
Yeah, but we're not putting them down, so delete this for a second. Right down to it? So make sure nothing is selected, you're gonna be placing that on the top. Nothing is selected, drag over now, and it will go on the top. Okay? Okay, go ahead. Okay. Okay, come on. If you want, if the cutting's taking long, just drop the thing in and don't worry about the cutting for right now.
I was going to aquaponics by the flies.
Yeah, you can save all that for like when you start animating. Right now, it's just to get the sequence of, oh, what did you do to that poor girl? Why is she stretched? That should be impossible to do. Okay, look at the scale. Okay. Okay, so 100. Okay, is there infinite for it? Okay, everybody have a look up here to me just for a second, because I've seen a couple of you doing this. When you are dropping your files in and scaling them up, yes, it is possible for you to grab the corners of it and scale it up, right? So you can scale it up and down, but if you're not holding down the shift key, this poor girl's gonna start looking like that. Okay, so we don't want that. So to prevent that from happening, an easy way, if you forget to hold down the shift key, is just to use the numbers here. I'm just gonna place my cursor over these numbers and I can just drag them back and forth. As long as I have this little link on right here, it's going to scale them evenly. Okay? So, easiest way is just to grab this down here, just click on S and start scaling them up and down from here. Well, for right now, just scaling them into place, we're not animating anything. saw you double clicking on it. When you double click on something, it moves to its own layer. So, it's, just be mindful of that you're not animating it in the main prompt, it's on its own. It's kinda long, this, here, we'll right back to the beginning. Check the time. Alright, your cache is full. So if you remember from last week, we're gonna empty out the cache first. So go under director menu. So under that, go to preferences, disk immediate cache. Using 46 gigs, empty that out. So it's After Effects works, so every time it renders something out, it stores that into memory. So if you've stored so much into memory that you can't store anymore, then it doesn't want to render anymore. Okay? So hopefully I'll be nice, sometimes it does want me to restart. Perfect, yeah, you got it. You got it.
Then we're, so it's gonna be a problem if something really right in between the spaces when you try to option and do it wrong. Do it.
Yeah, so you can always pull that out after, right? So I put mine right at the end of my spot. So just making sure that, as I get, you have a blank spot right there, right? So, don't worry about putting it right now. And,
I'll be able to fix that.
yeah, it's all not. Okay, everybody, I know everybody's doing their rough cut right now. You guys are actually moving along pretty quickly from what I see so far, that's good.
Too many classes.
What's your name? You can sign after.
Xavier, the appendix is there. Oh, you can't finish, the headphones on. That's okay.
Yes. Okay, so let's go back. Here's your input there, right? So let's go back to where you started. There. And you have to grab it. Now let's get it up. Okay, everybody, it is almost 5 o'clock. If you guys take 10 minutes. Take, 10 minutes. Be back at around 6 minutes after if you take a break. If not, keep working. If you want. Yeah. Scouring the internet for images. Yeah, literally started
Did you save this?
On that one,
Focused. So did you put the audio in? That's the audio? Did you listen to the audio? Because it's 1 second. See, this right here is 120, smart? So this is what you should have. Setting should be 1 second. 11 seconds. Whoops, right. So, you fake mark your audio.
Hello?
It's break for another 3 minutes. You can ask me a question anytime. Cut and invest green. Oh, you mean like how it like it was sunken in? Yeah, so here you go. So this is loop all the way around. So you want it on the back also? Do you want it in or do you want it out? So now we have this on the inside, right? So then you gotta click on that one, then you have to go out all the ones here instead of now. Now you out. Out. You out. Let's go. This is all fun.
How many people are done the rough cut or close? Close? Okay, give it a couple more minutes, then we move on to step number 2. You done? Okay, good. Alright, let's, we're gonna move on to the next step there, guys. Okay, just, pause what you're doing right now. You know what? Let's do the end, let's do the very end of it, then we'll get into the other one, because you guys can go back to the rough cut, but just in case we run out of time today. So we're going to like step number 4 now instead, everybody. Have a look up here for me, please, everyone. We're gonna just leave this little section alone for right now. Let's look at the end slate logo and call to action. Kind of like that red one there. Okay, so we have some text on here. All of this text is, let me just close all of these, select all, click on the letter U, shut them down for a second. Here's the text. So on separate line, save, sum, 1, there is the address, and this is a garbage layer that shouldn't be on there. Okay, so this is it, just these 4 different layers right here. So I think everybody knows how to use a text tool. So what I did first off was look at the end of my end slate right here. So I can see that this lasts probably about, if it's done, my final animation comes in at around that 1 minute mark. I know that I have that 11 seconds to just do logo animation after. Okay, so this is the end with that logo animation in there. Okay, so I'm going to make a comp that is around 11 seconds. Even though it's not full 11 seconds, I have a little bit of extra time that I can play with. So let's do this. Under new, go to, under new composition, give it a name, and class file, call it what you like. And this time, this is just that last 11 seconds, and that kind of worked out perfect. So 11 seconds, same size as before, click on OK. We're gonna leave the alpha channel there, we're not gonna put a background on that, but I wanna build it on black anyways. So as mentioned, I'm going to give you guys the option of laying this out however you like. So that's my end layout. If you'd like to have a 1 somewhere else, or the save somewhere else, or the sum somewhere else, that's up to you, okay? You can just lay that out however you like. But on this one right here, we need everything on a separate layer. So we're gonna use our text tool. Find a font that looks decent, that's, no pun intended, impactful. I use impact on mine. If you wanna find like a bold font that works so that you can see very clearly, you can use that. So first off, I'm gonna start off with just typing in save. Let me change the color of that back to white. And I think all caps is probably a little bit better to use. So I'm just gonna use all caps on mine. So save, duplicate this layer, Command D, move it somewhere else. Sum. I'm waiting for my E to show up. I don't know, sometimes, yeah, there we go. Sometimes it'll show up and sometimes it doesn't. And then, for me, I just use on my next layer, just type in 1. And I'm gonna wait for it to show up again. Okay, so save someone, and we have to kind of configure this however you like, okay? Totally up to you. So for me, I did something like this. I just scale this one down a little bit like that. And I dropped my 1 over here.
So I'm just doing the final layout of what I want the final layout to look like right from the beginning. Okay, I'll give the save maybe a little bit more space, line it up with the one a little bit better. So that's my layout, you do your own, okay? Everybody's can look completely different. Now, for me, the first word that's going to come in on mine is the word save. So I'm going to open up my position on save, just like we did before with some of the other stuff. So save, I'm going to move ahead on all of them. Just choose all of them for right now. And all of them, I know that I'm going to be using position on each one. I'm going to hold on my shift key. I might use rotation on all of them also, and on some of them I'm going to use my opacity. So I'm holding down my shift key and I'm just gathering everything up together right now, because I know this is my endpoint, and on my endpoint I want to set keyframes on the position, at least a position on all of them. And I just did it for rotation and everything else. I can always clean them up after. But I know whatever animation I do at the beginning right here, I know that I want to end like this, right? That's my endpoint. So I'm doing my endpoint first. All right, so the first one I want to look at is the word save. I'm going to move back to 0. Save is going to start off over here, right off the screen. So right now I have this. So really rough edit first, save comes in. And then the next one I'm going to have is sum. I like where the anchor point is on sum right there. So on sum, I'm going to start off with it, maybe I'll rotate it by, let's say 90 degrees right here. So it starts off like that. So they're moving in like that so far. And then one's going to do kind of the same thing, but one, I don't want the anchor point to be here. I want it to kind of rotate up. So if you look at one right now, it's justified to the left. I'm going to justify it to the right. Move back over top of my keyframes. Let me see for one, go back over my position keyframe and then just readjust it. And I moved it to this side because I know that I'm going to be rotating it. If I'm rotating it at that 90 degrees here, it's going to start off like that. I want it to rotate right from this corner here instead, right from here. So right now I have everything doing this. Now, to lead the viewer into reading this in sequence, I'm going to stagger the animations of all of these, okay? So save is definitely the first one that comes up. Sum, I'm going to move sum back a little bit. So save, sum, and then one is going to move back, maybe down here also. I still have to time it out. So this is a rough cut for it right now, so save, sum, one, popping up like that. Now, this is where we have to get into fine-tuning everything, okay? So while everything is moving in, on this first one right here, I definitely want to have an opacity keyframe and have it fade in at the same time, so it's going to fade in over time like this. On the next one, sum, same thing. Sum is going to fade in over time also. So opacity at 0. And definitely one is going to fade in over time also. So one starting off at 0 for the opacity. Okay, so everything's kind of fading into place. Now, the other thing I'd like to do with save, I want save to come in slowly and rest in slowly. I don't want it to be linear like this. So on the position for save, I'm going to select both of these two keyframes for save. I'm going to right click on them. And I think this is a spot where I could use a keyframe assistant and just choose easy ease on it. So if you look at how it's animated in now, comes in a little faster, lower, and then locks in. Now if I need to stretch this out a little bit, we're always going to be adjusting all of these. So maybe over let's say, maybe this is gonna happen over 2 seconds, I do have 11 seconds, so I can stretch these out a little bit. This is where I start checking on the timing of everything. So let's look at the easy ease on this right now. Okay, and then same thing maybe for the sum. On the sum on each one, maybe I want to do a easy ease on the beginning of it. See what that looks like. We're easing in. I don't mind that too much. And then one, I want one to come in super slowly, so on the rotation of one, select both of them. Keyframe assistant, easy ease on that one. I might stretch these keyframes out a little bit, have it last a little bit longer. So one's going to do this, and hopefully it comes to a nice peaceful rest. Okay, and then of course, if I need to edit any of these, like let's say that I want to edit the rotation of the one right here, I can go into the graph editor. I can click on these keyframes right here. So right here it's at the end. I can have it kind of coming a little bit slower even. I'm pulling some of these out. Okay, so don't be afraid to go into that graph editor and edit some of the keyframes in here. So one, I'm going to have it moving a little bit slower. And then for each one of these, if you have these open, let's say that save is going a little bit too quickly. So on the position on save, oh, I would have to add an easy ease to that, but I can stretch that one out more on the timeline with by moving this. So really go in here and fine tune how you want this to be laid out. Take your time, use a graph editor, use a keyframe assistance to get the movement that you like. So once this is done, everybody, once you have something that you like, then you can see this one here, end class file, composition. It's in a bad spot right now. Let me pull it out and place it in with the rest of my comps. Once that is done, and here's the rough cut, I'm just gonna place this. You can place it at the end for right now. I would probably wait. But if I drag this one, drop it in right there, and then move it to the end, you can see that that whole composition that we just built is going to be right at the end. Okay? Okay, so take your time building that out. The next step, everybody, after you actually build that out first, and then we'll get into the other one. And remember, it doesn't have to look like mine. Have it look like something completely different.
When those are done, so definitely want to but the first part is done. So by 1 second.
Alright, so basically instead of
So then you, wherever you want it to be done, and then you're gonna be placing separate.
Okay, make sure you let it read properly, okay? You don't want it to read saying save one sum. And if you don't think the one is in the right spot, move it somewhere else.
get all done in 11 seconds. I would 4 seconds.
much easier to do the end frame first, and then go back to the beginning and start the animation.
Whatever you're gonna play with. Don't do that.
Is your attendance done there, guys? You guys sign here? Huh?
How
So what you got so far?
have this on the, you recommend adding the text adding for like two things and.
Well, finish up this first while you're at it, but keep in mind where the anchor point is or not. Causes some problems, right? Go back into your paragraph for a second under characters. You come back. The paragraph, yeah. Justified that side on the one. To the, no, next one. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then, one so far, you're gonna have to move the anchor points over. Undo that, because it's still far off.
So if you look at this,
See where the anchor point is there? Use the pan behind tool there, and just move it to the corner of the one down.
look like it started from
No? Yeah, you won't be able to do it like that here, and I'll let you do it after. Okay, you see where this is, right here? The anchor point?
Oh, yeah.
So if you go to rotate that now, it's gonna rotate from here instead, right? So you should have it rotate, right? Okay?
Where is everybody?
It's okay, we're not doing much today anyway. Oh, you didn't sign? Did you guys sign? Oh. My mistake. Thought you guys signed. Aaron, aren't you absent?
I didn't do anything with the last game. I didn't do anything with the last game. I just cut some between things. Still up in the
Well, thank you, everybody else signed. Thank you. Okay, we getting close, guys? Everybody have some kind of animation, doesn't have to be perfect?
Okay, everybody, last few steps coming up, okay? You guys ready? And everybody's working on that last part, but let's have a look at what, just finish this up, just to add, the final animations to this and a little bit of polish at the end. Okay. Couple of things that have to be done. Let me go back to the student class here. First, let me just close this, it's kind of getting in the way. And I'll lock my audio layer. Okay, so I just work on the first couple of frames right here. I have an effect on mine, and there's a couple ways you can do it. I'll just show you one way, just in the interest of time right now. I have my image at the beginning, kind of like scaling up a little bit between the eyes of it. So let me click on it, let me make sure I can see where my anchor point is and change my anchor point right here already. So what I'm going to do first, everybody, is just to set my keyframe for the scale. So frame for the scale, moving up, going past a little bit this one. Let me just turn this layer off right now. And I'm going to scale this up just a little bit. So it's really subtle scale, and any of these kind of matches the tone of the music and everything that we're doing. The next thing that I'm going to do, on all of mine, I don't have any position keyframes at all, okay? And I'm not saying that you can't do that. If you find a spot where you want to use one, definitely go ahead and use it. So I have this scaling up. The other thing that I have on here is an effect. If I go into my effects right here, I am going to type in exposure. So under color correction, click on exposure. Is that yours? Oh. So on exposure, everyone, does exactly what it says it does. Exposure, like you'd have exposure in a camera. Under exposure, I'm just going to click on a keyframe right at the beginning for exposure. Remember that 0, 0 is what's true to the image. And then at the beginning of the exposure, I'm going to crank this down. So it looks like the exposure of that image is just getting darker and darker and darker. So I'm going to crank it until the image is gone. Okay, then I'm going to move it ahead a little bit, have a nice fade up, so I know this is going to be back at 0. And I want to see these keyframes, so I'm just going to click on U to see the keyframes. So here are my exposure keyframes right here, so we can see it fading up, like that, while it's scaling up. So on this keyframe right here, I'm going to copy it, and then paste it in. So from this spot to this spot right here, you can see the image, and then right when it gets to the beginning of the other one, I'm going to turn it back down. So I'll just copy this keyframe and paste it over at the end. So we have this. Okay, right at the beginning. So same sort of thing on this one. So we do have to set the scale on the second one. Let me turn it on. So as soon as this one turns down to where it's pretty much black, same thing over here again. So let's edit the scale, set a keyframe for the scale, and then going right past the next marker and scaling this one up. Now, in some cases on the other one, I decided to scale the image down instead, so it starts a little bit higher, then it scales down. I'm going to leave that up to you, whether you want to scale stuff up or scale stuff down. Okay? So while that one is scaling up and down right there, I already have these keyframes for the exposure done. Okay? I don't want to have to keep setting it over and over again. So I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to go right back to the beginning of this keyframe right here. If I hold down my shift key, it'll snap right to it.
click on this layer, paste. Pasting it in, okay? Then I can click on the letter U to bring up my keyframes, and I can see exactly what it's doing right here, right? So it's gonna take that exposure again, change the exposure on that image, hold on to it for a bit, and then depending on when the next image comes, gets entered in, you can scale that in, or you can change the duration of these keyframes. Okay? Now, the other thing that was done, and this is just a bit of a safety net. In some cases, some of you might have a spot where there's a little gap in between, which is fine. But to save yourself any trouble of popping up and seeing some transparency in between, this is what I did, everybody. Just have a look up here for me, please. I'm gonna move my timeline marker back to 0. I'm going to go under layer, new, solid. On that solid, I definitely don't want it to be this color. I want it to be black. Click OK. On this black layer right now, this black layer is going to go right at the bottom of everything. So just in case there's a little bit of a gap underneath that you can see through or in between the layers, you're still going to have that black layer in between. So for instance, if this was like this, right? If there's a gap right here, and I did this, because in some cases you might not see it, it's gonna fade out, and it's just gonna be black. And then it's gonna fade back up again in between, okay? Now, last but not least, as you build this out with the sequence of the images that you have in here, most of them are going to look like this as far as the keyframes go. You will have to adjust them depending on what kind of timing you want. But the other thing that was done was this, everybody. Now, you guys haven't done this before. I mentioned that we were getting into masking next week. I lied a little bit, but we're going to get into some masking today. Okay? So, once again, the reason why I'm putting this mask on here is that some images might be cut off at the side here, or if you messed up something on the edge, you might not be able, you might see some of the edges of the imagery around. To fix that, everybody, this is what we're going to do, and it gives it a nice sort of look also. Under layer, I'm going to go to new, solid again. On that solid, everybody, that one's going to stay right at the top. But on this one, I'm going to quickly use a mask. And we're not going to get into too much details of masking. This is what masking is. I'm going to choose the ellipse mask. I'm not going to ask you to draw anything out. All you have to do is double click on it. And I know you can't see anything yet, but this is what the mask does. See, it has a big circle that's cut out now from that layer. Now, if you look at the parameters for the mask, you can see that by default it's set to add, right? So it's adding the blackness of this area. I want to set it to subtract instead, so that everything is going to be seen through that part of the mask. Now, this edge on it's a little bit too hard. It's going to wreck it. I don't want our hand being cut off like that at the bottom. So to stop it from doing that, under the mask settings, you have the feather settings on there also. Crank up the feather, soften up that edge. I'm still gonna have blackness on the outside here, but when I play this through right now, it's going to have that same kind of vignette going around the whole thing. It's gonna stay nice and dark on the outsides like all the rest of them. If you look at the final one right here, you can see it right there also, right? Just kind of softens up the whole edge of everything. There's the mask layer on the top. So those two black layers that are placed on there, one is for like a bit of a safety net for anything that might fall in between the cracks of each layer, so it stays black, and then the other one is on top to make sure that if there's anything outside of the edge, it's going to fix that also. Okay, and it looks nice also.
Just to see, just.
Last but not least, everybody. Last but not least, let me just show you how this text was animated at the beginning. Okay? And you can, well, let's open up another comp just for a second. So everybody just open up another comp for me, please. I'm just gonna copy and paste my text over. So layer, new composition, let's say it's around 11 seconds. Click on that. I'm gonna keep my alpha unchecked, and I'm just going to type this in. See what this looks like. So there's my text, okay? So I have a text layer saying the invisible ones on there. So this is how I animated the text. Now, within a text layer, everybody, yes, we still have the usual transform, anchor point, scale, position, rotation, all that kind of stuff is in there. I'm going to animate this without using any of these though. Okay, so if you look at the text, you also have something over here called animate. Okay, if I click on this one right here, the first thing I want to look at is just my tracking. So on the tracking, right down here, I have one called tracking amount. I'm going to set a keyframe on that one, and that does exactly what it says it does. Everybody knows what tracking is. I'll move it out to 2 seconds, and I will change the tracking amount. So over time, my tracking is going to do this. Okay? And of course, we can add our eases and all that kind of stuff to it too if we need to. The other thing that I did with this was add another effect. I added one called blur on there. So I'm going to keyframe blur right towards the end. So set a keyframe with it at 0, and then right at the end right here, on top of this keyframe, I'm gonna blur the crap out of it until you can't see it. Right? So it does this now. Okay? And of course, if you like I did with mine, I did cheat a little bit. Let me click on U to open up all of my keyframes. I did add, if I hold down Shift and click on T, a little bit of opacity for the beginning. So starting off at 0, move ahead just a little bit and fade it up to 100. So overall, we have 3 different sections on here. We have our tracking amount, we have our blur, and we have our opacity working together. So all together they do this. Now if you'd like to see it a little bit slower, let me just drag everything right here. I'll just stretch these out a bit, stretch these keyframes out a bit. So over a longer period of time, this is what they do. Okay? So that added on to the finished one. Okay, I know that's a lot, but just to go over it one more time, remember that I have a little bit of a safety net at the bottom, just a black layer that just streams along the bottom. I have one on the top with that mask on it, right there, and then I just have the one on the top. Well, this is the one on the top with the mask on it. Text animated, and then a lot of repetition. Like if we look at these keyframes right here, you can see the pattern. Okay, there's a pattern right there. So scaling up, exposure, scaling up, exposure, scaling up, exposure, and in some cases scaling down too, but still just to scale. So in a lot of cases of this, all I did was this. Let me copy some of these keyframes, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, all the way through. Now be mindful, and when I say copy paste, I'm meaning mainly the exposure, because the scale might be different from one to the next. We can see the scale on this one right here. This one right here is reading at 175, and I would be surprised if this one right here is, well, this one is at 156. This one's at 185, so the scale is always a little bit different because all the photos came in at different sizes. Okay? But in the end, you can get something that looks pretty decent, right? Okay, does everybody understand the process at least? Okay, so with that process, everybody, you can get some stuff that looks decent, right? This is something that you'd easily do for an ad agency.
I was still alone the moment that you held,
You guys want to do this right now? Your song?
'cause I couldn't let go of who I thought I was. I guess that's how.
Okay, so for next week, everyone, as mentioned, we're getting into masking and track mats. We're going to do a couple exercises, seeing what those do. But then, what my plan is to do, and I don't know if this is going to work out or not yet, I want to add some track mats and stuff to this. I have some video that I'm going to add to some parts of this, okay? To finish this one off, and maybe some more text. But that is it. I know you guys are busy with other stuff, but definitely play with this a little bit. I'm not saying that it has to be done or anything like that, but this is definitely the process that you would go through. So first thing, rough cut. Okay, well, no, sorry, that's not the first thing. First thing, mark your audio. Second thing, rough cut. Each stills or video, rough cut. Okay, next, animate all of those to kind of match with the music a little bit more. Then you get into your details of all, you know, the little tiny little parts like blocking out the background, adding some masks to it, fine tuning those keyframes with easing in and easing out and all that kind of stuff, and just polish it right at the end, right? The polishing at the end takes longer than marking the audio, the rough cut, and animating. Okay? It's the good old 80-20 rule.
Basically, like, that's why you were saying like at the beginning, we want to learn the skill and
Just drop it in, because the dropping in is also a good way to show the client a preliminary look of the sequence of things on there without you having to finish the whole thing and then coming back and saying, hey, you know what? You know, I wouldn't mind that image there instead of that image, and
Yeah.
like, that will change everything,
Yeah.
right? So rough cut first, and then say, hey, this is the sequence that we were planning on doing. This is what I call like the straight animatic of everything. So this is rough animation of what it's going to look like. And then if they say, hey, that's fantastic, you can say, okay, no, we'll fine tune this and make it look very, very good.
And then how you were going with this one like scaling.
Yeah.
Scaling.
Yes, so what I usually do with client, I don't like to have the same sequence of like just scaling up, scaling up, scaling up. I like to switch it up and go, okay, this one's gonna scale up, this one's gonna scale down. And it's at the end where I said, you know, I would say like, you know, this is a great image, this one's really impactful, and then spend a little bit longer on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, but still keep that same timing going all the way through.
So for instance, like you say, just use something with rough cut. You say this was a technician like to say, instead of on the view. I would leave it from this point. You say just using this one.
This one, then use that one instead, use the second marker instead.
So like how would I get up? Stretch this out.
Yeah, but keep the same timing. Keep the same timing.
Then it drops on the.
Yeah. See? that's it for now, everybody. You can take off if you like. Thank you very much, everyone. If you need to talk to me, I'll be up and around to see you. Fine tuning is gonna take so long. That's what you wanna do. Hello.
I mean, just
I have a question. For some reason, the emails are sent, the image isn't been attaching. Whenever I try to run through the windows of light, the background shines into the room instead of seeing the light. I have no idea why.
I don't have any idea why either. Let's have a look and see what's going on.
Which is a little annoying. Because the guy is basically ready to render besides that.
Okay, so you have this section here. You have the back. Do you have a camera set up or no? No, I just want to see what the back looks like. So that's the image right there. I'm going to turn off your lights right there.
Oh, we were meant to put it on that?
Yeah, the image goes on that.
Oh.
Isn't that where it is?
Oh no, I was putting it on the glass.
No, because yeah, then it's shining through as like a, like a projector.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so that's that's probably what's wrong, right? So it goes on that flat panel on the back, and then it's the glass is just a glass, and you're looking through the glass at the window, just like if you're looking through this window, you have the glass, and then you have what's
Okay.
going on in the back. That should fix it.
All night trying to figure it out. Alright, thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Did you want to try it now and let me have a look? See if it works, or you need to take off? I understand if you need to take off.
I can try it. So it goes on like that, the blue highlight, right?
Yes. Well, let me see where your camera is for a second.
That's the next week. So we should do it this week.
Where was your, looking to see where you're looking through here. Oh, your camera isn't attached. Like the camera.
Parts of the video and B-roll.
Okay, so on this one, I don't, oh, is that your render right there?
No, rest.
So the image is on the window. Okay. Okay, so yeah, take it off the window. Find that plane in the back. You still need the glass texture on the window though. Where is your window? Let me see. So window, glass, and scenic view. That must be the plane in the back where the image goes. Okay? Try that again.
What he was doing.
To yourself.
Like I wrote the script, but I don't know why. I don't want to speak there. I can't. So I'm not. So who? Oh. Because I it's not because I don't want to speak. I just want to look at what the person is. If I do it myself, I'm not going to see if that is what I want. Okay, good point. Yeah, I just want to do it, then I can do it. That's how it's going to look for you.
But you can't speak.
I can speak.
You have a nice voice. Yeah. So you can speak. That's good.
Yeah,
I can't.
Never.
I want to know.
Oh,
How to add a handle?
oh, okay, so pick the, look, close that editor for a second there. Close this. Okay, and then, is it on that layer?
You are right for me.
That one? Okay, right click on it. Oh, use your move tool. Okay, right click on that layer. Right click? Do you have a right click?
This right click.
No, like right click, you have mouse? Yeah, use a mouse. Here, let me show you on mine.
Yeah, that's true, because like you don't know what to look at.
Okay, so if I have
Yeah, I mean, I hope that will give anything unique, like this week. I always like to my
Yeah, okay, but it's still a 3.